Hey guys, Mike here. So it's one of those days we get to answer all your questions and comments and everything. And you asked a lot of questions. I mean, I got questions about taxes, triple leverage, ETFs, the Fed. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And so, and you even put some stock requests. So I'll put those more at the end, but we'll talk about those as well. And so, especially at the end, I'm going to be talking about the Fed. And hopefully you understand, because I like to pull back the curtain. And I've always been saying this for years now, the Fed owns the stock market, right? I mean, anytime the stock market needs a hero, here comes the Fed, right? But understand there's things the Fed does you might not even be aware of that actually hurts the country, because they get like this, they get all these applauses for like coming in and bailing us out, but the problem is they're the ones creating the problem, right? So I don't know why you give them credit. Well, I don't know why we give them credit for that kind of stuff, but you'll see in this video we're talking about and what the Fed has really become. Like what kind of entity it really is, okay? And so let's just get into the first one here. One of our members who actually talked about Mike, for this Saturday's question session, could you help Discord members about taxes and different accounts and different vehicles? It would be an interesting topic and everything, like stocks versus options versus crypto, and then Roth IRAs and other things. And I gotta tell you, I mean, first of all, I'm not an accountant, so I'm not about to be foolish enough to try to tell you how to do your taxes and everything. But I will say this right here about what you're going to see, and you're going to be wondering why it's happening, and it has to do basically with taxes, right? You got tax loss harvesting and everything, and usually what you'll see in December is people, especially if they owe taxes, they're going to take some of those losers that they've been holding on to, they just aren't working or whatever, or they don't have a lot of conviction in them anymore, and they're going to sell them in the month of December, and so that way they can obviously take those losses, try to put it against the gain, so they have to pay less taxes on that. And then come January, right, the ones that are the winners, and to avoid paying taxes on those for over a year, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll sell them, or not like sell the whole portfolio, I'm talking about shave part of it off because they want to rotate that money into something else, and that way they don't have to pay the taxes. So if they did it now in December, right, they had to pay it for 2023, yeah. And then if they did it next year, they got a whole nother year to offset it if they have more losses, or go ahead and pay taxes on the gains a year later, okay? So that's what you're going to see a lot of. Now, when it comes to one thing, I'll say this, because I know about this because I have a couple of them, is if you don't, and man, please, dear God, ask your accountant about this stuff, by the way, but please, if you don't know what a Roth IRA is, sit down with your accountant, a financial advisor, whatever you need to sit with, all right, Google it, for God's sake, it ain't hard. And this is straight off Fidelity. That's one of them accounts, man, I don't know why everybody doesn't have one. And if you make a boatload of money and too much to open a regular Roth, there is a backdoor way to do it, okay? The IRS knows all about it. And when you see here, I mean, it is unbelievable, guys, the benefits of a Roth IRA. Contribution to a Roth IRA are made on an after-tax basis. So you already pay the taxes when you put the money in, so you're not going to get any kind of tax deduction like you do with a traditional IRA. But here's the kicker, and this is the very first one. Money grows tax-free. Withdrawals are tax-free as long as you follow the rules. The tax-free part of the growth is what you mean. I don't know if you remember Palantir, Peter Thiel, one of the co-founders. The dude has like the largest Roth anybody's ever heard of. It's over like $1 billion, I believe, or something. Okay, because he would buy his startup stock and put it in the Roth, right? Buy it through the Roth, and all that stuff is tax-free for him. I mean, it's insane. That's how he's growing it so fast. There are no required minimum distributions like with the other kind of accounts. You usually have to do it at a certain age. Leave tax-free money to heirs. Again, follow the rules on this, but it seems to be a great thing. I know a financial advisor who actually did this. The tax flexibility, help reduce or even avoid the Medicare surtax as we keep rolling down through here. And so as you can see, I mean, there's so many benefits to this. Okay, there is a limitation how much you can put every year. It changes every single year. Now, next one comes from Coach here, and he says, since we are expecting a recession or at least rate cuts, will TMF keep getting higher even though the market may move down since TMF technically affected by the interest rates, blah, blah, blah. Now, let me tell you something. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm not even going to address whether TMF is going higher because if rates get cut, yes. But here's what you need to understand about 3X leverage ETFs, because I hear a lot of people talking about them. Let me show you something. Here is QQQ, okay? It's going to be setting an all-time new high. I think it actually did on Friday or going for it on Monday or Tuesday. Now, here is TQQQ. There's all-time highs. How far is TQQ off all-time highs? The Qs are only 1% off. Wow, look at that, 85%. Because you have the K and everything that goes on with these triple leverage ETFs. So these are not meant to be sitting there and just holding and for months and months and months and years. That's not what they're like, right? And TMF, the only reason it's trading at where it's at 65 bucks because they have to keep doing this is it did a split. It did a 1-for-10 split. This thing was trading at what, in November, I believe, at like $5. All right. And so that's because of the way these act, they have to keep doing that. And so don't get into the habit of buying triple levered ETFs and you think you're going to hold on to them, make a killing with them if you do that another. And there's actually, I tried to find it and I'm sorry I couldn't. I swear to God, I put it in the Discord somewhere. I was talking to somebody about it. But there's a paper I read where they literally went down and did an Excel spreadsheet and did the research, because each triple levered ETF is different on how quickly, right, you get that decay and stuff. And so each one of them are different. And so, yes, to answer your question, it depends on, you want to time it out with the triple levered ETFs. You don't want to be just sitting there holding going, I hope it happens. It's like if you look at a chart and go, okay, this is fixing to happen here, I need to be in it now. And you're looking for the big moves, right? It's no different like in options. You're looking for like that big explosion and you make a lot of money doing that. These levered ETFs are that way. So yes, if we're getting to where we think the Fed's going to cut, then you want to try to hit TMF and it's going to go up very quickly because yes, as yields drop, especially if they drop fast, TLT is going to go up even more. That's their inverse relationship, okay? So but be careful with the triple leveraged ETFs. And guys, before we continue, if you're getting anything out of this, please hit that thumbs up down there. I really appreciate it. And if you like the material here and the videos, think about subscribing. And so our next question says, how do I create the IWM SPY chart on TradingView? I'm thinking what you're talking about here, Benny, is a ratio or something. So if you're looking in TradingView, all you do is go up here and type in IWM divided by SPY, and you do this with any ratio. I'm assuming this is what you're talking about there. And this is really good stuff to do to understand how an index is performing against the SPY, right? Because you'll have it where the SPY is outperforming the IWM, and now as you can see, the IWM is outperforming the SPY. It doesn't mean the SPY is not going up. It just means the IWM is going up faster, okay? And so, you know, and again, do this with anything, but usually base it off of, like for example, a big one people are looking at right now is something like a biotech, right? So IBB, which is doing really well, and divide that by, you can do it the Qs, you can do it by the SPY. You can see it's outperforming the SPY now, right? It's one of those things that's moving up. Draw trend lines as well, you know, to sit there and see if it's broke that trend line, which it has, just eyeballing it. And so these are very powerful things to use, guys. Now, next question we got here. I heard corporate stock buybacks will pause for the next month due to blackout window. What impact could this have on the momentum in the stock market? And usually from 12/12 to 1/19. It's the same dates I heard. And I actually read a research paper on this when I saw dates like that. And the truth is, like I said, does it hurt the momentum? No, because guess what? More than not, and I showed you what really triggers the Santa Claus rally in a good December, right? About for up 10% going in September and all this crazy mess. We tend to have a pretty good one, right? And the blackout windows always happen. So, you know, now could it be even better momentum if corporate buybacks were happening during that time frame? Probably, but maybe what they did was they just went ahead and bought it all back before the blackout window started. You know, and it's not the same, as far as I know, it's not the same for every company. And so maybe that's why November and the beginning of December going up to the 12th was so freaking crazy. Maybe corporations were buying back their stock. You know, put in the comments if you got any information on that, because yeah, but it's just not one of those things. I mean, it helps obviously because they're buying stock, yes, of course, but it's not the be all end all or anything like that. It's not going to like shift the market really one way or the other. Now, next one, John says, if these rates drop, doesn't the dollar drop with it, and will inflation ignite again? With that in mind, would the Fed have to raise rates again? Just wondering. I think they're definitely done raising rates unless something crazy happens. But if you look at this, let's just pull it up. Here's the dollar, and that's inflation above it, right? So inflation was raging, the dollar was going up. Inflation's coming down, the dollar is going up. Inflation kept coming down, the dollar finally went down, right? Here's the 10-year yield. Inflation was going up, yield was going up, inflation's coming down, yield was still going up. And so it doesn't really, you know, I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of direct relationship. I don't really see it though. As you can see, it looked like it was kind of tied together, but whether yields are going up or down, you know, inflation was still either going up or down too. It didn't really seem to matter because when inflation started coming down very quickly, the yields in dollar was still very strong at that point in time, right? Remember? Now, the next one says by Bilbo here, I got a market structure question. Right at market close or just after it closes, my charts will show a large volume trade. This trade is usually for a high, low, and close, all the same price. The volume is huge compared to the average daily volume. And so I think what you're talking about here is called a market on close, MOC order. And it's a non-limited market order which traders execute as near to the closing price as they can, either exactly at or slightly after the market close. The purpose of the MOC order is to get the last available price of that trading day. MOC orders are not available in all markets. are from all brokers, and I think this is what you're trying to talk about, if I'm not mistaken. So these volume bars you'll see at the end of the day, how big they are right there, and that's on the cues there. And then we go back, you see another one there. And you'll see where it'll be like an imbalance, like the sell side to the buy side, whatever it is. And I've tried actually tracking these and see if it really helps for the next day. I couldn't find a pattern on it. So if you can find a pattern, let me know. But that's what that is. It's not even something I would really be worried about. Now, next one comes from Peter. He said, could you look at mortgage companies such as Rocket or BKLN? What about Z or Redfin on a pullback? When you look at these, all the charts look the same, right? Here's Zillow, and that's the real estate stocks to the right there. Right, they're all, I mean, the RSIs are through the roof right now. They're all basically coming in some kind of resistance, at least on Zillow and like a Redfin and stuff. They are. So again, they've been on a tear, man. I mean, these things are up huge. See the same thing here on Redfin. And so should there be a pullback? You would think logically there would be a pullback. And just looking at this, I mean, you can see there's some support right there. There's support right there. There's a gap there to be filled. And so, yeah, I mean, probably get in there, start drawing some trend lines, you'd be good to go. But you look at the home builders, different story. These things, I mean, they're basically at all-time highs at this point in time. So then you got to start thinking a little differently. I mean, I'd start drawing some trend lines, maybe from here to the top right there and see, okay, maybe if I get a pullback to this trend line, which is going to be a long way to come, honestly. I mean, you look at that, and to get a pullback, that's a nice little pullback. Look at that thing. I mean, that's just parabolic, right? It's like 3 straight weeks of just straight up. That's a 17% drop. But if it comes down there and, mortgage rates are dropping, everything's still looking fine, probably going to pop, all right? Probably going to pop. And you see the same thing happening here with Pulte. So, again, they all kind of look the same, right, when you look at these. And so, there's got to be something there if you really want to get into them. But, I mean, I'm definitely, I wouldn't be buying that kind of high. That's crazy. But if it's able to pull back, great, but we'll see if it just keeps going straight on up. We'll have to see. So, hope that helps. Now, next one comes in and says, do you think Square and PayPal can continue the rally into the new year? Of course, Gary says, and PayPal, I hope so. And you see PayPal here, it's just gotten this channel and it loves this channel. And what did it do? It filled all these RTH gaps, right? So we just they filled 3 of them. So we will take those away. Nice move up, ran into some resistance right there, as you can see. And you can see right now it's kind of heading back down to support in the back of that channel. So as long as it stays in that channel, it's good to go. You're going to have resistance obviously there around 63, 64-ish area right there. And if it can get above that, great. See the moving averages at 200 is going to be a beast to get through. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. So I'm not surprised it sold off because it's had a nice move, nice recovery. And I think when you pull out some, here's another trend line I think it's going to have a problem getting through right there. And then when we zoom back in, I'm almost willing to bet money the 200 moving average is going to actually line up with this. So, that's going to be some really tough resistance to get through. And that'll be around the 65, 25 area. But again, once it gets through it, that gap up next takes you around 72. So yeah, I don't see why not. Just ain't gonna happen at once, that's for sure. Square, of course, had this crazy parabolic move up, no doubt about that. Again, this is another one, depending on where you draw this trend line right here. It's gonna be another one that's finally hitting resistance. That's why it's selling off really. And I think I'm actually going to move it over to the next peak right there. There we go. So that gave us our 3rd touch, and it got rejected. But this one definitely needs a breather. There's no doubt about that. I mean, that thing just had an enormous move. And so, yeah, the fintechs, they've been on fire. They can continue. And when rates coming down, that kind of stuff, I can see that helping them as well. Now, that gets us into the Fed.
The Fed basically has become now just a giant hedge fund. It's lost $1 trillion, and counting. It's going to be a gigantic loss. What it does is borrows money at 5.4% from banks and then dumps it into government bonds. So think what that trade does. That causes the government to think that it's better off than it is. And so that encouraged the government to be short when rates were 0. So why did the government borrow so much in T-bills? Well, because the Fed was buying the bonds and it made it look like yields were going to stay low remember the low for long phrase. So we've got these multiple problems that are going on, and it endangers the dollar. So that's the basic case.
Instead of the Fed having such large balances, wouldn't the private sector be starting businesses and risking capital and bringing returns and adding to growth? Wouldn't all that money be better if it wasn't with the Fed.
That's right, and we're depending on private equity. So as the banks get squeezed out, because they're lending so much to the Fed, it's literally a floating rate loan from banks to the Federal Reserve so it can buy government bonds. So if that were freed up, that would allow the banks to at least consider a small business loan and inventory loan, the kinds of things that help the economy grow. And this is on a global basis. It's not just the Fed. It's all the major central banks doing the same thing, meaning taking money from the economy in order to buy government bonds. We need to be clear on that. I heard the previous segment, they talk about money printing. There isn't any money printing on it. It's just money borrowing, and they pay top dollar for it. The Fed pays 5.4 to banks and 5.3 to money market funds, so to the Fidelity and Vanguard and so on. A big problem is the government always gets first dibs on every dollar that anybody earns. If they want to borrow it, they're the lowest cost borrower in the whole world. So if the U.S. government wants to borrow $60 trillion, the world will step up and say, where's my chance? And that is really harmful to the business climate because you're altering the risk-return ratios.
And so, what do they hold in common with a hedge fund? They have people there that do insider trading, right? We know the Fed presidents were trading all during 2020 while they were setting, policy, right? Ain't that great? Now if you work for a public traded hedge fund, you'd be fined, whatever. Maybe you can go to jail for it, but that's insider trading. But that's what they did legally, right? So they're doing that too. They trade, they invest, they do all that stuff. Okay, and so it's just a big giant hedge fund. And this guy kind of tells you, in a way, like the problem they're creating, though, because they're so large now, it's insane. I mean, I've showed you their balance sheet. After 2008, it just ballooned. And the Fed never had this much sway, going back before that. But now they just control it. And so every time there's a problem, which usually they're the ones creating it and help creating it, that's what they have to bail us out. They have to bail it out. They have to bail out the regional banks. Right here, take as much money as you want. Here you go. Right? 2008, all this good stuff. 2020, they started buying corporate debt. And another thing is, I don't even know if they have any rules to follow anymore, because every time we get in trouble as a society, we just sign over our rights anyway. We don't care. As long as you're protecting our retirement accounts, do whatever you want to do. Right? I remember they were buying corporate debt in 2020. People said, can they do that? And people said, I don't even think that's legal, but who cares? Right? Whatever they want to do. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about that and stuff, especially for those who are actually into that kind of stuff. So at least you get to see a little behind the curtain of what they're actually doing. That's why they had to bail out the regional banks, right? Because they created the problem. That was part of it. So anyway, hope you guys got some out of it. Hit that like and subscribe button if you did. Put any more questions you have down in the bottom. Feel free to help out in answering the questions we went through in the video. And I will see you tomorrow.